This week, we're building Darth Shakespeare.
The context for this project needs a little explaining. Ian Dosher wrote Verily a New Hope, and it has, as all good art does, inspired people to begin to cosplay as the characters in the Elizabethan era version of Star Wars. A brief sample of the work. We join a familiar scene aboard the Death Star.
Those plans shall soon recovered be. Fear not.
Attack upon this station is pointless, regardless of the data they have found. I speak not rashly when I hear aver, this station now hath power ultimate o'er all else in the vast wide universe. And now, I prithee, let us see it used.
Nay, peace. I warn thee, man, be not too proud of thy great terror technological. A weapon for the mass destruction of a planet, even to destroy the whole, is no match for the power of the Force.
Thou shalt not tempt to frighten us with words, so like a man of magic, Vader. Nay, thy sorcerer's act is tired and overdone. The sad religion thou dost cling to hath no power to recover the stolen plans, nor dost thou have third's eye sight to make...
I find thy lack of faith disturbing.
When I was designing the helmet, I wanted it to be as period as possible, while at the same time evoking as much of the Darth Vader aesthetic as I could. That's a bit of a difficult combination because the Darth Vader helmet is based mostly on the Japanese style of Kabuto helmet. What we decided to go with was mostly just a copy of the Darth Vader helmet with a bit of a nod to a German salad design with a lobster tail at the back and a fairly pronounced ridge along the head, which is much more European than Asian. I made the helmet out of 20 gauge mild steel, which is not at all what you would want a helmet to be made of. You'd want it to be much thicker, at least twice that thick. The reason I went with such a thin material is because the wearer is expected to be having it on most of a day or over a couple of days at a convention. And to make it a full weight helmet would just crush their neck and it wouldn't be at all comfortable. Because it's so thin though, I had to be a little bit more cautious with my work. When you have 14 gauge steel, you can wail on it pretty hard without worrying about it tearing. As I worked through raising the helmet here, I constantly had to worry that I was going to shred it and have to start again. How I made the helmet? Well, I started by gently dishing it out with this fine adjustment device. And that was just to get it started. I didn't want to sink it too much because as I sink the metal, it stretches and thins it out even more, which would definitely lead to tearing if I tried to do the entire helmet that way. But that was just to get it going. After that, I started raising it around a stake that I had to make for this project. To do that, I need a raising hammer, which my friend Sean kindly made me. And what's different about this than normal hammers is it has a flat profile at the front. And this means when you hit the metal, it's only going to stretch or move the metal in one direction. It's not going to do anything sideways, it'll just move it vertically. This raising process I had to do over and over again. Raise, anneal, raise, anneal, raise, anneal. And it took a couple of days of solid work. And I am very proud of what came out of it, but oh my goodness, my shoulder wanted to fall off. The effective difference between raising and sinking is that when you're sinking or dishing, you're stretching the metal out like a balloon. However, when you're raising, you're crushing the metal down around something, and that actually makes it a bit thicker as you go. So the outer edges of the helmet became thicker and stronger as I went. Once the helmet was completely raised, I could then add the articulation to the back. These articulations are pretty easy to put on. There isn't a lot of joint design, they're very straightforward. How I got the shape is I used masking tape to get the shape of the back flange of the helmet, and then I just extended that down for the next lame. And I did that twice, so we have two articulated lames. The brass trim around the outside of the helmet I put on using a technique that a man named Rob Martin showed me. He's a brilliant blacksmith and armorer. He's got a shop called Thack Ironworks, which you should totally check out. How it's done is you take a strip of brass, as long as you need, and crimp it down the middle. So basically fold it in half. Then using an oxyacetylene or propane torch, you can anneal that brass, which makes it nice and soft and malleable. And then you just clamp it and hammer it down along the edge. As a final detail on the helmet, I took the Imperial logo and etched it into some brass and then riveted on in 3 sections to the back lames of the helmet. The mask section was much more fun. There's much more artistry involved in sculpting the visage of Darth Vader than just rounding out that shape of the helmet. As with most of my metal sculpting work, I did most of it into pitch, but also I had a variety of anvils that I was hammering and raising the surfaces around. The mask was pretty hard to create. This is largely because the original wasn't designed to be forged, it was just sculpted, which frees them from problems with metal thinning out and tearing and buckling that might go on as you hammer away. This meant I had to be very careful as I went, making sure that areas didn't thin out too much or collapse in on themselves. The next thing I had to deal with is that steel isn't particularly transparent, and the wearer is going to have to be able to see out. Now, I could have thrown in plastic lenses like they have in the original mask, but that didn't feel very period. The solution I came up with was carving the Imperial logo into the eye sockets. And I love how this came out, but it did take most of a day of working carefully with a jeweler's saw to get the crisp and precise pattern out. As a final touch, I added a mustache and beard, somewhat mimicking the ones typically depicted on William Shakespeare, to give more of a period flair to the costume. I cheated a bit on the mustache because we're not entirely sure that the wearer of the costume will want to have the mustache on for all occasions, so I made it affixable with magnet, so it can come off and on. Sort of ruins the period authenticity, but who cares? It's amazing! As some final wearability concerns, the inside is thoroughly padded with some foam, and I added a chin strap so it doesn't wobble around too much. Ugh.
Don't forget to subscribe up above, or place suggestions for future projects below.